probably what I will also do is, since I have just one panelist, I may throw some of these questions open. If you have any feedback, let us keep it as interactive as possible. So if you look at it, what I am going to cover here is more in terms of, it's a neutral subject. It's not related to SAP, it's not related to any specific cloud. It's more related to how are the current regulations and the security considerations affecting your decision towards moving to the cloud. You know, every hyperscaler is gung-ho today. They're building data center after data center after data center. But customers have their own problems, customers have their own issues, and nobody better than somebody like him to address it, because he's from Tata IAG. He's governed both by regulations as well as by businesses which are in India and abroad. So probably I'll start off with an easy one. So if you look at industry-specific regulations, sir, so like finance, you have a lot of additional requirements that cloud deployments must comply with. So how do you manage it? Because if you look at it, you have businesses in India, you have businesses abroad. Every country is bringing up its own law regarding data, etc. So how do you manage it?
Okay. So before answering this question, I would like to bring into your notice like how we do first, how we understand like is our application or code base something is ready to promote to the somewhere cloud or not. What are the basic mistakes that we do when we migrate or when we do the somewhere development? So you see many times like how we do, let's take a somewhere real-time picture. So if you see the development, how they open the kind of a security groups, they open when it is somewhere inbound, that is somewhere limited, like inbound rules are limited, but outbound go anywhere. That is somewhere the big mistake that they do. And how, let's say the next point is how they are want to implement it, suppose that. And how, suppose that I'm the hacker, okay, and I want to enter into your system, how can I enter into it? I will choose one port, which is somewhere open. From that port, I will enter into one system and check that, okay, which is the executable that is somewhere having the, if you see the Linux system, how it is somewhere SH file is there and what is the permission it has. So with the help of that hacker, enter into that, and you won't believe when he will change that SH file from normal echo to enter into your system and crash your system. So that is the somewhere the first step that we need to look into the security. I'm not going into the somewhere the answering the question that is asked by Venugopal as of now, but I'm looking into the next question. How you analyze your application? What kind of a security you are doing it? I'm not asking the somewhere the infrastructure, the another thing. How you do at code level? So at Tata IA, we 100% assures that like our code base, whatever we are having, that is somewhere vulnerability free. We are using our own custom like a Docker images that is somewhere with the zero vulnerability. So any application or any possibility of any like hacking or somewhere can enter into system, that should be minimal. Now answer to the somewhere Venugopal question. Now coming when you comes to the somewhere in a cloud journey, okay, how you are in India, let's say India has different IRD, a regulatory authority. US is having FINRA authority. Okay, they are restricted, like their data should not go outside the country. Apart from that, like the first priority for a finance industry is the customer's data. How you will secure the data. So when we talk about this, so we are having somewhere different approaches for that. And on the basis of that, like we basically secure the data in the specific country for the basically the customer data, and the respective applications, those are always running on the cloud. So this is how we manage that somewhere the security of the data. That is how I would like to answer.
Great, great. So I would also like to open it out to the audience. If in case you have had similar experiences or you're grappling with a similar problem, what is the type of solutions you're looking at or how you're approaching it? because again, a lot of you would have operations both in India and as well as abroad. In fact, he covered both the aspects of data, which is primarily data being governed by regulations and data also susceptible to security. So if any of you have any such experiences, probably you can share it with us. So you can become a panel member again. So anybody in the audience would like to contribute towards what we were talking about? Fine, let's go ahead. So you spoke about security. Okay, so if you look at cloud security today, the onus has moved from centralized security to what we call as endpoint security. So
That's
the
correct.
whole behavior of the hacker has changed, because one of the underlying mottos about the cloud business is when the customer client himself is not aware where his data is, how will a hacker know it? Okay, so it becomes very difficult for a hacker to pinpoint where that particular client's data is. So what are they doing now is they are moving the onus from, and of course the cloud service provider has multiple levels of security. Very difficult to hack it. It needs a really brilliant mind to do it. So though there are instances, they are far and few between. But what the customer or what the hacker is doing today is concentrating on employee security. So what we call as credentials. And that is where endpoint security comes in, because who is susceptible today in your entire link? It is the end user. Because typically today an end user is grappling with probably 20 passwords at a time. He has the system password, he probably, if he is running an ERP, he has an ERP password, he is running with a credit card password. So people tend to either note it down or keep it in a file. I've seen the most logical ways, on Windows you have notes, they would have listed down everything. So if in case I as a hacker is able to get into your credentials, I've got everything there. And it doesn't really count as a cyber attack because I am impersonating you and entering your system. So that sort of thing. So what are the steps you're taking, say for example, today to ensure that that discipline among your employees, both in terms of prevention of such stuff and also enforcement of such policies?
Thank you so much, Venugopal. This is somewhere the real pain of the industry. When you go to anyone's desk, there will be some few papers you will see. There might be some confidential data, that might be the user personal data, that might be some other information. So first of all what we think, it should be a clear desk policy. So first of all, your desk, or when you are not there, there should not be any issue. And now coming to the somewhere how any hacker enters into system, or how it basically impersonates the data. So somewhere I can see the missing of the best practices. So if you see any application, basically I'm from the application background, coming into the DevOps, cloud and infrastructure. So all the answers related to the application related itself. So how anyone enters into your system? First of all, you see, couple of minutes back I was talking about some security analysis. So let's take two components, static analysis security tool. Anything, let's take a simple SonarCube that is somewhere freely available. Everyone, see, I have 680 issues, but those are lower. That doesn't have any impact on me. And they are saying, and they are move forward. I'm not sure how many people are using the somewhere front end as somewhere React script or TypeScript or somewhere UX. This is somewhere the latest technology that people are using for the writing the front ends. But how they are having the credentials, where they are storing. They are having some environment.ts file, in that they are having the somewhere environment specific file. So in case, if anyhow you enter into any system, you have everything. You have everything to the data, and now in the somewhere, some of them, people are using the seed value of that, the encryption value. So you can go into the database, encrypt it from the encryption you decrypt it, and all the user's password and the who having how much somewhere information, that everything will be captured. So at Tata AI, we apply the 4 level of security basically. First level is somewhere we do the static analysis. Here we scan each and every application's code. So anything, whatever is somewhere there, any kind of a possibility of threat or anything, that is somewhere 0. And apart from that, we are scanning the somewhere supporting libraries as well. Suppose that I am using some library in the code base and that is become vulnerable. So we are reducing that too. So I'm not saying we are 100% using the 0 vulnerability. I will not say, because I have interviewed like so many people, and I have got interviewed by so many people, more than 500 people interviewed, but they are saying like we are 0 vulnerability, but basically nobody is the 0 vulnerability. Why I am saying that? Suppose that some vulnerability is identified today itself, how you can say you are 0 vulnerability? So that is somewhere, I'm not going into the marketing strategy, but I will say, actually in the real-time implementation, there is no such solution for the 0 vulnerability, that is somewhere security. And apart from that, if you go more into the somewhere dynamic analysis, so many of the things, sometimes we share some information due to the misconfiguration. That we covered into the dynamic analysis at Tata AI. Third thing that we implement the somewhere interactive security. So suppose that we find, okay, this is the issue, whereas the issue can be identified in the code base. So it redirects that to the somewhere that is specific portion of the code, you can see that. And the last level of security is the real-time self-protection that we implement at Tata AI. So in case if any hacker attacks, and then it automatically identifies that, like, okay, there is a frequent requests are coming from a specific IP, then there is a DDoS attack. Application will identify itself and block those IPs. Similarly, the SQL injection, or I'm just giving the some couple of the somewhere names, vulnerabilities that can be identified and resolved. On the top of that, you can apply some front level of firewall or WAF on the top of application, and now coming to the real application. This is how I was telling you, this is the somewhere level of the preventions, how we are preventing that. In case if we are finding that such kind of mistakes, we can prevent it. If we have some information that is somewhere already available in that code base, or somebody, let's say desk or somewhere, sometimes how we do, we just take the mobile, take that. Oh, this is my password, this is my OTP. We are not seeing somebody is checking, somebody is watching my mobile, right? So this is somewhere the basic things that, so this is how we are supposed to maintain the security. Even though I will speak in Hindi, this line, मेरे को धोखा वही दे सकता है जिस पे मैंने भरोसा किया हो. So if you trust someone, okay, he can break your trust. If you don't trust anyone, nobody will break your system. Any comments? Anything?
So any comments from anybody? Because this is a topic, I think, which affects a lot of us in terms of security. In spite of whatever we do, there are still leakages. It's all dependent on human behavior, right? So for example, Vinendra was talking about trust and governance, and how the government is trying to build a sovereign cloud which can integrate all the banks. Fine, again you're talking about something which is very centralized, but ultimately the end security will depend on the people who are using it and how strong they follow policies. Right, somebody had a question. Yeah,
yep.
Sir, I think if somebody can just give him the mic, it will be, or I'll walk down. Been sitting long enough actually. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So as he mentioned that application vulnerability, but certain areas where the application vulnerability cannot be fixed within the overnight.
That like somewhere I said the 0 vulnerability.
Correct.
Correct.
So like a SAP or like any other application which is vulnerable right now. So there is a certain solutioning which can be done at the immediate effect.
Hello, sir.
That will help us like a virtual patch, like a WAF. This all solution will help us to mitigate for that timing to the this kind of vulnerability, which is occurred at the time of the version upgrades or changes has to be done, taking change control and approval and all those things. So there is a certain mitigation plan is there, but definitely vulnerability will never be a zero. There will always something the other will you will be able to find. So virtual patch is the one of the immediate solution which we can find out.
So in that case, that you clearly said that like zero vulnerability is not possible. And apart from that, okay, so coming back to the somewhere anybody or any organization, I'm not answering it in the terms of the SAP or somewhere Microsoft Azure. How basically the vulnerability is maintained? That is somewhere the Open Web Security Application Project, OWASP is somewhere one of them. And there are some other people or other organization, they maintain a record of the CWE and CVE records, right? They have the n number of databases, vulnerabilities. So in case if any vulnerability is identified, they will immediately add that into that somewhere their CWE or CVE, and immediate patches are requested from the organizations, those are having the somewhere. So similarly, like you have seen the Log4j vulnerability, it is the somewhere on the fly, it came, right, in last couple of, and I think everybody is, after 2 to 3 days, we got patch for that, but yeah, 2 to 3 days I will say that it is vulnerable. Hope I answer your question.
Probably the immediate solution would be to just switch off the system and stay out of the network until it is resolved actually, or pull out your internet connectivity. You know, sometimes the simplest solution can be a very effective solution. Fine. Can you just introduce yourself, sir, once more?
I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my name is Rajkumar. I'm part of the RPG group. I'm also the CIO for Case International, which accounts to the major revenue share for RPG group as such. So there's a dual roles, one for the group level as well as one for the delivery as well as the ownership of the company. Okay.
Okay. So one question which I asked him, which I will address to you. So we have had many customer queries about people who have, say, multiple instances of an ERP across multiple countries. They are a global group, probably based out of India, and their interest is to see how they can integrate all this into a single instance. But today they are mostly worried about the regulations across multiple countries. So there are certain countries which insist that personal data cannot move out, or there are certain countries which have strict data privacy laws. So as a global group yourself, you have operations across multiple countries. How are you managing this? Because you would also be looking at consolidating costs by integrating everything into a single powerhouse, probably in India or probably somewhere else. But how do you manage this customer data, or how do you manage your own data?
So I think, okay, I can look back into my previous experience as well as the present experience. And I think you are talking exclusively on the ERP side, which could be SAP in particular, right?
Yes.
So, like normally, I mean, if you work with major group companies, we have something like global template rollouts, and the data would not be residing in, you cannot have multiple instances in every country. That is not possible. So, depending on the quantum of work, for example, I was working with Siemens, and we have global template called Spiridon. I mean, that will be to ensure that you have a global template, because one is you have a localization requirements, then you also have requirements which can be the standard processes across the globe, and anything, I mean, you're talking about purchase requisitions or purchase order process, or any metrics which you require, it might cut across multiple countries also, depending on the quantum of value you initiate as such. So what I'm trying to say is, the global instances could be in terms of having Asia Pac region, you have one server, then you have one for EMEA, one could be for for North and South America. This is the way the structure works. And even if I compare the present, I can quote examples with multiple companies. It could be Siemens, it could be companies like, even Nike, which has global presence everywhere. And then we are talking about even RPG Group. We have, within KEC, we have a single instance. I mean, that is all in India. But we have North and South American operations also running from the same instance. We are also running Dubai instance from India. That's the way it works. So you cannot have multiple instances created for each and every company, or I would say rather every country. It is not possible. But yes, you have to also comply to the data requirements, like GDPR requirements, and we are talking about India privacy laws coming up. So we need to talk about it. How do you actually manage and all? So if you are able to create an ecosystem and say that the data residing and data is actually not being, when you create some SODs, that's, you call it as, authorizations, SODs, conflict of interest related roles and all, which is supposed to be managed. But as such, they are all completely audited systems, and every system has its own, data, which is segregated out. But whether it is based in India or based out of India, I mean, that is something which is still not coming up so extensively that you need to create multiple instances if you have operations across the globe. That is not possible actually.
Okay, thank you. I think that was a very comprehensive answer. So we were talking a lot about security. So probably the same question I will try and approach you from a different angle. So large corporates are now moving on to the cloud. Okay, so when it comes to security, it becomes a very shared responsibility. So there are cloud service providers who talk about securing your data on the cloud, and you have yourself who needs to secure it from an endpoint perspective and local perspective. Sometimes things can fall through between. Both blaming the other, saying this happened through an endpoint, the customer saying no, it didn't. How did, even if it has been through my endpoint, how is it that he was able to access your this thing? So how do you manage this as a policy within RPG? I am sure that you have a lot of systems on the cloud today.
I mean, one thing which we all have to agree that today we cannot have a single, service provider. For that matter, you will not say that I'm only with Azure, or I'm only with AWS, or you have co-locations, you have your own data centers. This is bound to be there. Even services like you go with Office 365 and all that thing. So security has to be looked up from a different angle. So as far as we are concerned, or I would rather say it is industry practices that we all have to, I mean, when I created something like IT security roadmap, which is for 3 years or so, the framework remains the same. Like we talk about something called zero trust environment. So when you say zero trust, we need to look at from a different angle as such. What is that you have in your mind in terms of endpoints? I mean, if you have like, XDRs or EDRs, which you need to be having it on every machine through which you would be accessing the any of the server, which could be in Azure or whatever it is. But I would not say even only data centers for that matter, but you have SaaS service providers, because that is something which is bound to be there. So you have resources spread across the globe, which could be your own data centers, it could be SaaS services, or it could be your own I would say rather your own data centers and all, or it could be SAP instances, maybe in HEC environments. This is bound to be there. So you have multiple instances. So when you actually look at creating a framework, what you need to look at is you have multiple resources available across. You also have the users spread across the globe, and they have their own endpoints through which they need to get connected. So the framework should be in such a fashion that we should never rely only on the service providers, or I would say rather any data center, public cloud providers or so. It should be a comprehensively thought through structure. That is, you need to create frameworks like SOAR. I mean, when you have an SIM, the SIM has to go so deep and also have to integrate with multiple, I would say rather, touch points. Like for example, you have an EDR or an XDR that should be integrated with SIM. You have your own, so any security solutions which you create within your environment has to be integrated back with your SM. So that is a governance kind of a structure. So in that also you need to see whether you have an automatic response kind of a structure, so that if there are internal and external kind of attacks, whether it is northwest or east-west traffic within your own environments, has to be thought through. Then every kind of an element. For example, we are talking about the way you need to look at is you need to have XDRs, you need to have PAM solutions, you have to have multi-factor authentications. You also need to look at ATPs. Then we need to look at SASE solutions, which is going to be a far bigger solutions, which would look at endpoints from a different angle. So each and every point, it's secure connectivities. We are looking at web proxies. The entire gamut of things are all part of the same thing. So what you need to look at is these, irrespective of the resources and the endpoints which you have, any solution which you deploy will be an independent, needs to be get integrated in terms of overall umbrella, in terms of monitoring part, so that you will get to know whatever are vulnerabilities which are coming up. So XDR will have its own methodology to see, it has AI inbuilt and everything, so that it will give you the vulnerability assessment of that. So that inputs also goes back to SIM, and there will be a lot of false tolerances, and which needs to be collectively monitored and then needs to be fixed. The mechanism of patching, ITSM tools, everything, and every systems and every softwares and every kind of a solution which you have built within the system all have to be integrated. So nothing should fall between the walls. And they should not fall between the cracks. So that's the way you need to look at it, and that's where we said we used to implement a concept called zero trust. You don't need to trust anything. So you might have multiple service providers who would be giving you a lot of SaaS solutions which are available for everything. So all the solutions has to be integrated back, and comprehensively you need to look at this. That's the way it can be monitored, or else it is very difficult, because we don't have an ecosystem wherein we used to have our own data centers, the perimeter was under our control, we could easily manage it. But today that situation doesn't arise. So that's where we need to look at it from a different angle altogether.
So how many of you are familiar with zero trust? He's spoken about zero trust. So for those unfamiliar, I found a very good example where, you have a castle. Okay, a castle has a king's court, you have the queen's palace, you have the granary, you have the ammunition depot. If you don't implement zero trust, there is just one guard at the gate. He opens the moat and you're in and you can run havoc. When it comes to zero trust, you have authentication for getting to any of these various buildings and this thing. So that's the concept of zero trust. It's become very popular now. So before we wind up, any personal experiences you want to talk about in terms of security in your long career?
So it is somewhere very touching point for me. From last 17 years, we have multiple attacks at our organization, and every time we got attacked, there is a somewhere learning. So we try to apply this somewhere best practices, whatever the possible, at each and every level, zero trust somewhere. So we apply the somewhere each and every component, and where we can say that like our each component is somewhere trusted. And apart from that, for example, somewhere couple of minutes back, some other question was there, like if it is a global and data is somewhere centralized, how you will manage that? So apart from that, for example, I'm a India user and I go to the US and I try to access my data, I think it will not allow. It will not allow. Reason, in case if my region is changed or my country is changed, my system will not allow you to enter into system. You need to authenticate yourself in the certain ways. I will not name those methods, but yeah, once you will authenticate through that, then you will be allowed to yourself in the US, for example. And then you will come back, then again you need to authenticate. So you need to, so for example, in the zero trust, you need to go in each and every door, and your security has to be ask them, okay, give me the authorization. That is somewhere they manage. Apart from that, I will say our speaker couple of minutes back, they were talking about the Azure Active Directory. So similar level, we are using the somewhere authentication and the authorization for each and every layer what exactly is needed. Apart from that, the many organizations have the practices for the having the somewhere local users, that is somewhere completely avoided. So that is somewhere my personal experience, and different layers of the security that we have implemented at personal level. That is somewhere a great experience. I think that is somewhere the great learning for me as well at this step. If anybody has any other somewhere their experience or want to share their thoughts or questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you. And you, sir, if I can, just a minute. Any personal experiences? We seem
No,
to have overshot our time. She's getting
No,
restless, but
No, I think the first fundamental thing is that one is to protect in terms of zero trust. And what is that you're going to do in case if there is an attack? And if there is a ransomware attack on you, and will you be in a position to protect your own environment? And will you be able to spin it off, I would say rather with little or I would say minimal disruption. So I have seen in my career wherein if there is a ransomware attack, you talk about DR, DCs and everything, everything gets frozen. And you will not be able to retrieve the data out of it, or you will not be spinning it up. Even for that matter, somewhere or the other, if there's some backup which could be restored and you try to fill it up, but what happens is these command centers are outside India and you will not know what is happening. And the systems are down within no time. So what I can say is the preventive measures which you have already been taken up, better look at zero trust and start building it up. But more important for you guys too is look at the backup. So today we need to have this, one is anyhow you can go with S3 kind of things when you talk about anything backups like AWS and all, which could be the cloud backup. Take the snapshot of every applications and then start storing it across. But over and above it, create some kind of an, I would say airtight or, the backups which we are talking about. Create a backup of that in your own environment. And then again, traditional way of looking at it is still take up a backup in an offline mode, clean it up and then keep it as a backup. And as today we have multiple accounts. You have AWS, you have Azure, and all those things. So if you have an account, it is easier for us to use this particular environments to build it up, or with the backup which you are available to you, so that you will not be in a position wherein I have seen companies struggling for months together, paying ransom. Even after paying ransom, they will not be able to build the system, and it goes into chaos as such. So basically, hygiene factors are important. Keep the backup as one of the important aspects. Store it. Take a offline backup. You should be able to run this particular backup, and whether you will be able to restore and build it. Have some kind of exercises done internally, so that though you are taking up 100% preventions, but we don't know. There are a lot of zero-day attacks and targeted attacks which could always pull you down. Okay, that's what I can say at this point of time.
thank you very much. I hope this discussion was useful to you. I think we chose a carefully neutral topic which is always on the back of the minds for everybody here, because security is never enough. Complying with regulations is also never enough. There are new regulations coming day after day after day, so you need to be on your toes there. So I think whatever insights they have provided, I hope that it will enable you to make better decisions going forward when you revamp or when you're looking at evolving your own IT systems. Thank you very much.